Happy Wonder Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to our Floxies community. I hope you're doing well wherever in the world you're joining us from. And if this is your first time here, we're Floxies, an international community for women in UX UI design and Webflow development. And we gather here every Wednesday, inviting influential speakers from either the design or the Webflow space. So welcome. As per usual, I always like to see who's in the audience, and we want to keep these events as interactive as possible. So please use the chat, drop me a comment, and let's start engaging. So today's topic, we've been waiting for a speaker presenting Spline for the longest time. And so I just said it. Today we will be looking into Spline, a 3D tool, and how to integrate it into Webflow. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let me share my screen. Here we go. And what you're seeing right now is the little metaverse that we use to meet during the week. We host co-working events for our community, and obviously our live streams here on a Wednesday. And as you can see, somebody's left a little go-kart here, naughty. And that's how I'm gonna make my entry into our auditorium. So here we go. Disclaimer, I'm a big gamer, big nerd. So that's what you get. Boom. Hi, everyone.
So that's not me.
Somebody's left a little go-kart outside, so I thought I'd make it. It was Irina. Nice. So I thought I'd make an entry, or an entrance even. Hi, Jack. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for the invite, guys. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, we're very happy to have you. I know that you're usually on the other side of the mic, and for those of you who have been living under a rock and you don't know who this amazing person is, this is Jack Redley, freelance web designer and founder at Webflail. So Jack, would you like to tell us a little bit more actually about yourself? For those people that maybe haven't had the chance to get to know you and the amazing journey that you've been on. And thank you once again for agreeing to come here today and present Spline, which I know is one of the tools that our community has always been interested in, but we never had the chance to explore. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite. And so I do this podcast. Basically, I was freelancing a few years ago, 3 years ago now, and I was a complete failure as a freelancer. I didn't know how to freelance. Didn't know how to Webflow. I was trying to get clients. I didn't know how to get clients, and I was trying to ask loads of people how they did what they did. And I used this podcast as kind of a Trojan horse to actually get smart people to talk to me, because no one wanted to just talk to a random guy who reached out on an email being like, hey, how do you do what you do? So I started this podcast called Webflail, and I've interviewed almost 120 Webflowers now. So
Wow.
that's been really fun. And if I haven't interviewed you guys yet, I'm sure I will. So be warned. Okay, if you turn on your camera and I might see your face, then I might send you a message.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Watch them turn their cameras off.
Yeah, exactly. It's like boom, 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 boom.
Jack, can I ask you a question that I've always wanted to ask you this question? Where does the name come from?
Webflail.
Mm-hmm. Which to me is such a tongue twister. Maybe Italian. I can't just say the end of that word. Webflail.
Yeah. So it's actually not a very clever name at all. It's Webflow and failure smashed together, and it makes Webflail. So, and when you're flailing, so if like, I don't know, a bird is falling through the sky and it's like, as it's falling down, it's flailing. So the whole idea with Webflail is that, as you're struggling as a freelancer, or maybe, you're flailing and you're trying to work out how to freelance, that you embrace failure. You embrace the free fall.
You see, it's not just me.
Hey, it's not just you. Hey, I should be able to say that after this long. But yeah, so that's the idea.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's one of the perks you get of being a part of this community. You get to learn design, Webflow, and a little bit of language as well.
A little bit of tongue twisters, yeah. But yeah, and then I basically was doing started working for Edgar Allen and like other really interesting agencies through Webflail, and then more recently I've gone back to freelancing. So I've been doing web design and web development, specifically with Webflow. So where the hell does 3D come into this? Well, as more and more people are creating websites and there's more and more freelancers out there, I think it's really important to try and work out the type of thing that you really enjoy building and designing and working on, because I think that leads to your best work. And so that's where the 3D aspect came in, because I was really interested to learn how you can make more interactive websites. So I'm going to share my screen, show you some interesting stuff. Hopefully, if you're sat here, hopefully this is going to be interesting. And if it's not, you can just quietly leave. No, I'm joking. Well, please stay if you want to learn about Spline. Also, if you guys have any questions, maybe just jot them down, and then like I'll spin through this presentation and then we can talk about Spline, because I realized that there's a lot of questions that you guys have already asked me before we've even started, so I'm sure you'll have some by the end of this. In the link, by the way, is Spline. It's the Spline link, so just, you know, it's a free tool to use, so just get in and have a play, like maybe while we're doing this talk, and you'll see how intuitive it is to learn.
Can you share that again, please? Because I don't think I have
yeah.
it, because I just
My
stepped
bad.
outside.
Sure. So
Is it in the Floxies event? Yeah, there he is. Cool.
Yeah, Floxies event. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. So that I'm just gonna share it with Julie and Japan, who are watching from YouTube. There you go.
How exciting. Hey, the YouTube audience. Okay, so I've shared my screen. You are in the vortex, and now we're going to look at this. So, introduction to Spline and Webflow. So, what is Spline? Why is it different? Why use 3D at all? Should you use 3D as well? Like, this is an important question to ask if you're doing websites. You know, it does slow down your website slightly, so you need to think about that. How do you use it, and how much does it cost? I don't know why I put Quanta Questa. I think I was writing this with too much coffee. And some resources. Okay, here's the big idea. Okay, guys, 3D is not hard to create. I used to look at these crazy 3D websites and I was like, oh my God, how do they do that? Why do I even bother? I'm not even going to try. Please get that out of your head right now. 3D is not hard to create. This is the big idea that I want to share with you guys today. Why is it not that hard? Because there's this tool called Spline. So it's a free web-based online 3D tool, and you can do all sorts of interesting stuff with it. You can collaborate. There's an amazing community which share files which you can remix, just like, you know, Webflow has clonables. And what's really, really cool as well is that they've got different APIs so that you can link this up with all sorts of different tools, and I'll share some of that in a little bit. So collaborative, it's interactive, it's no code, it's browser-based. You can actually embed your 3D assets, whatever you make in Spline, into Webflow projects insanely easily, because Webflow actually has a Spline feature. So why should I tell you anything about this stuff? You know, I'm just a random guy who interviews people, like we've talked about. Well, I used to work at Crafted Studios back in the day when I was absolutely terrible at design and development, and I've got slightly better over the years working for some different agencies and doing some different stuff. So 3D, I think, makes the most engaging interactive websites possible. And so I started doing these types of projects. Clients didn't necessarily want them. I was like, I really think 3D would work well. Do you mind if I explore some different directions? And then I got really into it. So I did this challenge where I tried to make something 3D every day for a month, and then I carried on for a bit. And that was amazing to learn a lot about 3D really, really fast, like lighting and shaders and textures, materials. But then I got this message from Hal. Shout out Hal, an absolutely lovely guy. But he basically said to me, like I said to him, hey, if you want some 3D support, like with any websites that you're working on in your agency, let me know. And he was like, yeah, what kind of projects even like use 3D? Like we've never seen one of those yet. And I was like, oh my God. I thought that this was like obvious, and maybe it's not. And maybe not all agencies want to focus on 3D at all. So let's talk a little bit before we dive into Spline about why even use 3D in the first place. Like when is it appropriate to use 3D, and when is it not? So one of the key things that I think is really powerful about 3D is that you can obviously see a 360 view of a product. And I think this is going to become more and more powerful for e-commerce as, there's Apple Vision Pros where you can, look in a mirror and like see yourself wearing something in 3D. And I also think that like shop fronts, as you walk down a street, maybe we'll start to see more and more interactivity with our 3D life. We have like physical objects that we can touch in 3D now, but I think very, very soon we'll be actually interacting with a world that is, a lot more interactive than it currently is.
We're going back to Second Life, that game.
Exactly. I mean, video games and 3D obviously has a lot of overlap, but I can't help thinking that more and more of life is going to be, well, you can. I'm sure you'll be able to choose how interactive you want your life to be, but I can't help feeling that we're looking at tiny little screens on our phones and we're surfing, we're searching for stuff on search engines and then going to actual, websites, right? And then we can interact with the web that way. But I think soon we'll be interacting with the web and a lot more in different interactive styles. User engagement. So a lot of websites that have video, as if you have images on your website, you'll have longer user engagement time. If you have videos, users are likely to stay on your website more and engage with your website more. And 3D, in some cases, can actually really help users stay on the website even longer because they're intrigued about the storytelling aspect of your website. By the way, all of these websites I can send you links to, but there's some really interesting examples here of products and storytelling around, the medical industry, around coffee, beer, shoes. Like it's not just e-commerce; it's actually, a storytelling aspect for fundraising, for all sorts of different implications. And I also think that to separate yourself brand identity wise, having 3D assets that you can use for social, that you can use across any touch point of your brand identity really enhances user recognition of that brand identity. So if you guys have any questions, write them down. I realize that I span through that and I can't actually see your faces right now. So you might be like, wait,
Don't worry, Jack. I'll stop you if there's anything popping up.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Claudia. So, demo time. This is the fun bit. Okay, cool. So, once you made an account, you will see this. So, you've got tutorials, you've got examples from the community. Now, the community in Spline, you think the Webflow community is cool. The Spline community is so active. They're all on Discord. And they also are constantly sharing stuff. Now, say you're like, hey, I like this, let's click into something and then we can remix it. So you can follow different people that make stuff so that you get sent an email if they share something, which is a really cool feature. And then you just click remix. And then what you've got is this file in your own Spline account. Now look at this file, guys. This is so cool. One of the best ways I've found to learn Spline is actually to remix people's work, and then you can click in and you can be like, how are they doing this? They've got this grain thing, and what's DFS? They've got Boolean. Okay, we're not going to get into that right now, but we've got a sphere. We've got a camera. Okay, and you can kind of deconstruct this, right? So you can double click into stuff and you can move stuff around. Oh, okay, so we got some heads. And then what have we got? We've got some pieces here. So you see how quickly we can actually separate stuff and just be like, okay, what are they doing here? So number one question I get asked about Spline: how do you learn Spline? How do you learn Spline? How do you learn Spline? Success leaves clues. Okay, find people that you like in the community and then remix their work, and you can literally deconstruct how they've done stuff. Okay, so they've got these balls, and you can see if we separate this, whoop, we can see we've got materials on the right here. So on the left, if you imagine this a bit like Webflow, if you guys are using Webflow, you've got HTML on the left and CSS on the right. It's just the same kind of thing here. You've got the building blocks on the left, and then you've got how those blocks are constructed with colors and materials on the right here. So that's, I mean, this is quite a complicated example to show you. So let's just start a new file. But yeah, how do you learn Spline? There's tons of tutorials that will teach you stuff, but I really recommend just clicking into the actual community section and just remix stuff and then look at what they're doing. And you can learn a lot there. So let's say we just want to start afresh in a file and just see what it's like as you get in. So let's say you've just created a Spline account and you're like, oh my God, this is really overwhelming. Let's just have a little look at this together. So we've got all sorts of different assets that you can click on, and it will actually just load the file, just like if you were to remix something. Or you can actually create your own shapes within Spline by just clicking this little plus icon, and you can create things super fast, very, very quickly. Let's say we wanted to create a circle. If you hold Alt and drag, then you can actually create a circle that is perfectly round. And you've got these, this panel at the bottom means that you can actually pan around your scene. And if you hold Alt and then click on the background, you can actually move your scene around like that. So hold Alt and then click and drag, and you can move stuff around. So that's just the basics of kind of how you move in Spline and then how you can make stuff. And you're like, okay, Jack, we've got this circle, we've got this phone. I'm actually going to delete the phone. We've got a big circle. Cool. Now what do we do with it? Well, if you click on the actual shape that you've just created, then you'll see on the right all of these different what am I trying to say? All these different modals will pop up. So you've got states, so you can actually do animation within Spline. But I recommend changing the shape and doing all the materials and stuff before you actually do any animation, just because it's better to just have a fully formed shape. So we've got this weird button thing, right? Let's say we wanted to apply a material to it. Now, if you guys have used Photoshop, you'll be familiar with this idea of layers. So if you click plus, then you've got this layer at the top. So this is the color layer. Now, if we click on this little arrow, so little arrow, and then you've got all of these amazing different options here. Now, one of my favorite options is matte cap. Now, with matte cap, you have a layer that you can add which inherently has lighting properties to it. Now, the reason why this is important is because lighting is the biggest thing that slows down 3D on websites. When people have all these crazy lights going on, that's the biggest reason why your scene in a Webflow project, for example, is really slow. So if you have a material which mimics light but doesn't take a while to load, it means that you can actually have a more, a quicker load speed on your website. So we've got a matcap layer added, and you're like, I don't really like this color. Well, if you click the actual matcap icon, then it opens up this bar here, and you have some different layers within Spline that you can actually add very quickly and easily. And now we've got a really cool shiny effect. And if we then wanted to say add some texture to this, it's like, oh, this is a bit too shiny and it doesn't look particularly realistic. What we could do is we could add a noise effect on top of that, for example. And that looks really ugly. So what we can do is, you see these two little circles overlapping here. What we can do is we can change the overlay, we can change the effect to something like overlay, which means that we have something which retains the color of the layer below and the material of the layer below, but it's just overlaying on top. Now, obviously, this 100 we can change. We can make this say 10. We have a more subtle effect. You
And
see how
I'm
quickly...
sure that all
Sorry.
these, no, I'm just saying, like, because you mentioned Photoshop, but I'm sure that even if you've used Procreate, or even if you started playing with shapes in Figma itself, you might be
Mhm.
familiar with things like multiply, overlay, because those sort of effects and even the layers are sort of replicated on all these different tools. And obviously, Spline is targeted at 3D particularly and in depth. But if you've played around, or if you use Figma or any other design tool, you might be familiar with this terminology as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing to say is that Spline is meant to be used by people that don't know about 3D. Like, you're meant to be able to get in and use this quite intuitively. So it's a little bit simpler than Blender or Cinema 4D or other tools that you guys might have tried out. But this is meant to be a little bit more accessible. So yeah, I mean, everyone in this room is super familiar with no-code tools and stuff, and I'm sure that you will have no problems, playing around with this. But you can see how quickly we can create something that is, I mean, obviously it's quite simplistic. We've just got one single button, but you can see how quickly we can do things in here. Another thing that's quite cool about Spline, and I'm sure that this is going to get better, is that we can actually do a thing called AI style transfer. So if we click this, what we can do is we can click one of these different options, and let's say we like this steampunk style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click steampunk, and it's going to create a scene around this shape that I've just done with this like steampunk aesthetic. So if you imagine, let's say you were to do a product, you were to create a product, and you were like, okay, we want to do a kind of scene around that. In fact, what I might do is go to a different project that I've done. I made this iPod recently, so this might illustrate the point better.
We
So,
had a question about these particular shapes from
oh
Irina.
yeah,
She was asking, how do you create a 3D model of an actual product, like a shoe or a phone, or in this case, an iPod? Do you need to replicate everything from scratch? Do you have templates you can use?
great question. Okay, so let's say you're like, I actually want to make something real, like this iPod. So what I actually did is I might have the images still in here. I actually had images that I just imported. So I type in iPod 5th gen, and then I would get whatever the model is that I was trying to. In fact, I think I copied this model. Okay, so what I do is I'd screenshot it, and it doesn't matter if it's rough. And then you can import, it's down here, you can import a image, you can import anything. It's pretty wild what you can do. So say I wanted the iPod to actually play something. I can change the material to a video, and I can have a video that plays on my iPod screen. Pretty cool. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Let's put in a image of this iPod, and where's the iPod? There it is. Okay, so you can see here we've got. So what I'd do is I'd look at this and be like, okay, what different elements does this object have? So we've got this black metal material, or sorry, hard plastic material on top. We've got this like slightly noise effect scroll wheel. We've got the words. We've got these play buttons. We've got the screen. So I'm kind of like, okay, what are the different elements of this that I need to actually create? And then you can actually like break this apart and literally like look at the different elements that I've got going on here. I mean, like and this is why I recommend remixing files, because you can really see like granular level, like what are the different elements that are happening here.
And so you created this one iPod from scratch.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, how the hell does this all work together? Like, what are the different elements? And yeah, and then I would like build it out. So this has got like a slight indent. There's a slight texture on the material, and you know this. I'm not going to pretend that this took me like 10 minutes. It took me a good few hours of trial and error, like working out how to make all this come together. And I'm not like, it is a little bit time consuming to try and figure out how the materials are going to work together.
Wow, look at the back.
Yeah, it's cool. You can really get a sense of, how to make something that looks quite realistic. And people have said to me, "Oh, Spline, like it doesn't make realistic 3D renders." Well, I'd argue that's pretty realistic. Like I've got some like teeth in the actual
port.
Yeah, in the port. That's the word I'm looking for. Thanks, Nadia. We've got like this plug for the actual socket. Like, it's pretty realistic, right?
Yeah,
And
when you showed that you were importing the picture from Google, I thought, okay, he's gonna use some sort of AI to turn it into 3D. So no.
So yeah, okay, so this is something that's quite important to say. I'm sure that very soon that type of technology will happen. But what I've tried doing is you can actually do that. So if you type in to they have like this 3D generator thing. You can create something 3D from an actual image. But you can see that like what comes out is one, the 3D object cannot be manipulated. So it's basically like one single block. It's not like all of these different elements that I've just taken apart, right? So it's still working there. But also when you embed it into Webflow, like the magic of doing 3D in Webflow is that you can actually like target the specific like elements within the Webflow project. So say you wanted to animate like the scroll wheel, like changing the images on the screen. So there would be a mask, and then the images would like move across depending on like the scroll position of your Webflow project. Like you can't do that type of thing when you just have like an AI generated object. Does that help? Have you guys? Sorry, I'm kind of like flitting around loads of different topics right now, and this might be just like, whoa, Jack, this is too much. Everyone okay?
I think one good question here is by Winona as well. She says this feature is available with subscription, or you
Oh
can.
yeah, good question.
Yeah.
You can get in and play with this for free, like all the features that I've shown you, as far as I know. I do have a subscription. I think the subscription is like $9 a month. One thing to say is that if you were to embed a project, so okay, let's say we've got this Spline iPod, right? Now I want to embed it in a project, in an actual Webflow website.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this is a client project. Let's get rid of that and let's go to. I think I can actually just show you the iPod website. It's probably easier. So we've got. Sorry, I'm losing it. We've got this. We go export, and then what we can do is click viewer, and then from here, could not export scene. Try again. Oh, that's not a good message to receive. But you'd essentially click viewer, and then you'd copy this link, right? And then what you do is you go over to Webflow, and oh, I've changed I've changed the iPod. Okay, this is important to say. I've changed the iPod in Spline, and so this is actually changed on my Webflow site as well. So just be
Oh, so it's
aware that if you
okay.
yeah, so it's synced up. So if you mess around in here, and you need to like if you republish the site. So I must have republished this since. Yeah, I've got like a completely different iPod, which is not ideal. Anyway, okay, so I've got this thing called Spline container in here. And what you've got is a container which is 100 viewport width and 100 viewport height, and it's fixed. Okay, now this is really important, guys, because this looks like it's scrolling down the page with you. It's not at all. It's just fixed to the viewport, and it is animating depending on the scroll position of the website. Okay, I'm kind of intrigued now because this this is really messed up, but okay, it'll do. So, so let's go back to Webflow. So you've got this spline scene within this container, which is 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height, and it's set to fixed. Now, if you wanted to add a spline scene, you just click plus, you scroll down, and then you see you've got Lottie, Spline, and Rive. Now, Rive is super cool. That's obviously 2D.
That's for a separate episode.
We're not going to talk about that too much today, guys, but I am playing with Rive, and it is insane. But if you want 3D, that's Spline. If you want 2D, that's Rive. Okay, click Spline scene, and you see you've got this URL, and then there's this host scene.spline code. So remember, in Spline, once you've finished your asset, you've done your amazing 3D, then viewer and this top link, you want to copy that, okay? Inside here, we paste that code. We paste. Is that going to work? Why isn't that pasting? Sorry, guys.
That's the beauty of going live. It happens
Oh
all
my
the
God.
time.
It says the link's copy. Is the link copied? No. Okay, well, let's just pretend I managed to paste this production link, and this is now in my project, okay? So, Spline container, 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height, which means that it is covering my screen, and I've centered that in the middle in my Spline project, okay? So you got to be aware that if you do stuff in Spline, when you export that, you are exporting this scene. Now, if you were to want to change the actual scene size, you can do that in Spline. You can actually set how you can set the size of the actual frame itself. If I change the background color, you'll see better what I'm trying to do. So we've currently got a LinkedIn post that is 1,200 by 1,200. We can do Instagram, whatever, you know? But for the purposes of embedding it in a website, I recommend doing it responsive. And what that means is that if your screen size is smaller, then your scene, you can set your scene to actually be smaller itself. But yeah, you can determine how big you want your scene to be depending on the screen size itself.
Josh,
And
we've
that's
got a
why,
few questions about Webflow and Spline as well. Are
okay,
you
yeah,
okay?
sure.
Are you okay to take a few before we move forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just that I don't lose them on the way. So Christopher from YouTube asks, can you build out the elements of an object in Illustrator and then import it to use in Spline?
Good question, baby. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. So, one thing that I really think is powerful that not a lot of people seem to know about is if you have, let's say, some arrows. I want to import some arrows to Spline. So I've got these arrow icons here. What I can do is I can export them as an SVG, export arrow right, and then what I can do is go back to Spline. Oh, sorry, I'm keep losing my thing. And then you can embed, you can actually import vectors. And the beauty of this is that obviously I can change the colors and the size and everything within within Spline. So we've got a little arrow here. We can change materials. We can do all sorts to this element. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Where is it? Guys, this is a nightmare. I'm not, this is not loading. You can import SVGs. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not my screen. But yes, you can do that. So I recommend exporting from Illustrator or Figma if you've got particular elements that you want to manipulate in Spline. You can also import like different models as well, which is a really important thing to say. So let's say we had, let's say we go to a website called Sketchfab, and oh, I must have been looking for a pineapple recently. So let's say we've got these pineapple glasses are quite fun. Let's get these. So I've got these pineapple glasses, and this is a 3D model that is already made, okay? So what I can do is I can download this 3D model. Now, not all of these models are free on Sketchfab, but a lot of them are, so it's pretty powerful. And let's get this format. So this is a GLTF file. We can download this. And then what we can do is go back to Spline. Oh my lord, too many tabs. I'm going to get off this one and start a new one because it's getting a little messy in here. And I'm going to change that to white. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to import this file that I've just downloaded. Sorry, let me just open that zip file. Pineapple glasses. Cool. So pineapple glasses, GLTF file, and oh, these external buffers. Oh, this is not working, guys. Texture scene bin, GLTF. Maybe I need to upload it to GitHub. But
It says something about the .bin file. You haven't attached the .bin file.
Do I need to? Oh,
that's what it said. I don't know.
Maybe if I get both of these and try and open them together. External textures, but you haven't. Image files. Oh, I just want to upload the whole thing. Textures. Nope. Let's try GLB file should be good. Oh. Oh no, this was so smooth when I practiced. Such is
And
life.
I guess as you try to import those files, I have another question from Raima here.
Yeah,
Is the
good.
exported file alt text friendly in Webflow? Does it generate an alt text?
Um, so you can add alt text to your Spline file within Webflow, um, and you can do that by basically adding some custom code which specifies what the alt text should be for that Spline file. So Webflow haven't made Spline particularly easy to use in Webflow, if I'm perfectly honest, and certainly from the perspective of making this accessible, you do need to do a little bit of extra legwork to do that. But yeah, you can just put style tags in and then just do alt equals. So, whatever the name of your class is, and then specify what that alt text should be.
And then can you send these files to a 3D printer? Like, can you export for
Oh,
3D?
I haven't actually tried um, printing anything that I've made. That's a cool idea, though. So yeah, let's say we wanted to export this. You've got various different ways of exporting this. Um, if you were to do an yeah, say you were to do a 3D printing, um, like connect this to a 3D printer, it looks like you can just do that straight, which is pretty mad. Um, I was going to say you could just export this as a GLTF file, but it looks like you can literally like 3D print from Spline, which is pretty awesome. You can also just share this like with someone else. So say you were like, oh, I don't actually know like what, how to export it properly. Like you could just send the file to someone who does know what they're doing in terms of 3D printing, and then they could export it from there as well, which is quite cool.
Awesome. And in
Um,
terms of the presentation, Jack, did you have anything else you wanted to show us? Because I know that I see there's questions that keep coming and I'm starting to lose
sure.
track of them. So we might as well
Yeah, shall I
cut to
just
the
wrap up and then we
cheese.
can talk?
Yes. And open the
Okay,
Q&A.
yeah, sure. I'll be super quick. Okay, so all of this stuff is really fun and awesome, but is it useful? Like, and I think the question really boils down to where's the internet going? And I think what's kind of cool about Spline is they are super forward thinking in terms of how this actually can be used for wider purposes. You can actually do like interactive experiences, and they've just released an AI Spline feature, which is uh, a voice controlled assistant, which is pretty nuts. Like you can actually link this to like a 3D object. So I'm actually trying to do this right now. I'm trying to link an app that I've created to like a voice assistant. So say you were talking, um, you know, saying, "Hey, I want to plan a triathlon. Can you help me?" I can link this face to move with an AI assistant helper. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that 3D is going to become more and more prevalent. And if we're trying to be web designers and web developers, then I think it makes sense to try and move in that direction. That's my personal opinion. I know that there's plenty of different ways that the internet can move and is moving, but I do think that it's interesting to think about. I'm trying to teach this stuff. I'm trying to share what I learn because I find the best way that I learn is actually by trying to teach other people what I'm learning. So it's kind of selfish, I guess. But if you guys are interested, I'm going to be sharing more YouTube videos, like trying to break down what I'm building. If you're interested at all, check it out on YouTube. It's just type in like Jack Redley Design, and there's some videos there. And then I've also got this newsletter where I'm sharing tips on 3D stuff as I'm learning it. I am not an expert, but I'm trying to just share what I'm learning as I'm learning it. And, hopefully that's helpful for someone out there like you who's maybe interested.
Absolutely, and that's the
Spline,
spirit of this community as well. Like, you don't have to be an expert. I don't feel like anyone gets to be an expert at anything because, technology is constantly changing and evolving. And by the time you become an expert at something, then the next day is changed. There's a new release and you're
yeah,
outdated. So,
100%. Like this literally came out, yeah, so this is 24th of October this year. So what, like 20 days ago, 30 days ago, like the technology is moving so fast as AI is changing, as user behavior is changing, and I do not want to say that I'm an expert in this. I'm just like an avid fan that is trying to get really, really just involved in 3D, and that's why I'm interested in Rive. That's why I'm interested in Spline. That's why I'm interested in Blender. Like I don't think this is the perfect tool for 3D, but I do think it is the perfect gateway to 3D. I think this is a really powerful tool to get started and explore.
I'm
Um,
just a
but
designer standing in front of a technology beast.
Amen. Amen. Like, there's so many different tools out there, and it's quite overwhelming, but I do think this is a really fun tool to get your teeth into 3D. Other people that are doing amazing stuff with 3D and some of them with Webflow as well. My favorite guy is this guy called Min Pam. He is a beast. He's been making YouTube videos for years, but he is my top recommendation. But also, the Spline YouTube channel is great. Timothy Ricks has a few really good videos on 3D. Diego, I mean, God love him. He's the best. He's got some really, really great tutorials. This guy called Axie Morris is an amazing 3D designer, and also School of Motion have some really great videos about like lighting and shading, because sometimes you're like, I don't really know like the mechanics of how lights even work, like, and that's why looking at like motion design is quite powerful. Killer tools around Spline that you can also use. There's this really cool one that we don't really have time to look at today, but there's one called Hyperhuman, where you can generate 3D models really fast. There's this one called Maximo, where you can create like dancing people really easily and do
Oh,
like
that's cool.
animations for game design and stuff. This
That's
is
awesome.
it's so cool.
Can
It's
you share all those resources with us after, in the following next few days?
absolutely.
That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, definitely. In fact, I made this guy using Maximo. This is a little guy that um, I just exported from there, and he can do the rumba. He can do all sorts of different dance moves, which is pretty wild. Um, but yeah, Polycam as well. That does some amazing 3D stuff. So you can actually scan uh, like real life objects, and then you can export them and then import them to Spline. So I scanned this loaf of bread, which is pretty wild. So I'm like, I just want to say that Spline is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's all sorts of tools that you can use around Spline to make 3D and the internet more interesting, and apps more interesting, and just the world just super exciting.
What would you say the easiest file format for a beginner would be? So SVG, right? To export your design, whether you're using Figma or other tools. And then
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. So yeah, well, okay, let's just start really basic. If you have an idea, like sketch it out on paper and just be like, okay, what are the different elements of this thing? And how might I want it to look? And then you can start looking at Pinterest or Savvy It. I'm not sure if you guys have come across this site, but
mm,
they've got like amazing different examples, like visuals you've ever seen. Like, this is such a cool place to just come and get inspired and get lost. Um, So you might see something and you're like, holy shit, how the hell did they make that? And you're like, okay, cool. Let's like see if we can make that. So we A. So let's big A. Let's get this text element. Let's make this absolutely massive. And then let's make it 3D. So we're gonna add an extrusion. And then we're gonna do some cool like silvery effect, like a matte cat material over it. You see how annoyed my girlfriend gets with me. And then yeah, you can like, maybe you're like, you know what, I kind of want that, but then I kind of want like a cool like rough texture effect. Let's maybe like play around with some noise. And then you might want like a kind of glow effect over it. So you might add like a Fresnel layer. You see what I mean? Like this is so addictive, guys. I'm so into this stuff. So if you guys want to make weird shit on the internet, let me know. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is like, don't overthink it. Just see something, make something. See something, make something. Just and iterate, and you'll constantly learn. Also, like I said at the start, check out this community. There are so many amazing creators that like are just making the wildest stuff, and you can literally just see. It's like going into like a craftsman's workshop. You can just click and just check out what they're building, how they're doing it. Like it's mad. So anyway, that's my spiel. Hope that was mildly interesting. Thanks loads for listening. End screen share.
Of course, there you go. We were talking about talking on mute, and here's me doing exactly that. Thank you so much, Jack. That was incredible, super inspiring, super great to see. And I just wanted to make sure that we leave some time for Q&A, because I could see all these questions coming into the chat, and I'm going to make sure that everyone here at least gets a chance to ask one question. So, Spline is watching. Hi, Spline.
Oh, no way. What's up, Spline?
That's great. Come and join us next time. So let's open up the floor. Let's look at the room. Loads more people have joined us right now. So
Whoa,
Floxies.
cool.
Floxies, is now your time. You know how it works. You can put your hand up using the little white hand at the bottom, or just come off mute and ask away. We usually finish at the top of the hour, but if you're okay, Jack, maybe we can give it an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah, whatever you need, guys. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, so whatever.
Awesome. All right. Question number 1. Who would like to go first? Go on, Ellie.
Hi, Jack. Actually, I will maybe put on my camera.
That'd be nice.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe not working. I don't know what I have.
Oh, there you go.
I had a question. Okay, perfect. Hi. I had a question. I put it in the chat, but I was wondering. So you explained that there is a free version of Spline, and I checked that on the free version there is branding appearing. So let's say you make a website for a client, and then you pay for Spline, and then what happens if you stop paying? So it downgrades to the free version. And then the second part of that is, therefore, is it possible, just the same way you do with like Webflow, you transfer the website to the client, is it possible to just transfer the Spline account to the client so that the client can decide, okay, I continue paying $9 a month for the animations I have on my site?
Great questions. Okay. Claudia, is it all right if I share my screen again?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just don't want to, you know, there's people that just share the screen and you're just like, you didn't, you know, you just stole the mic.
It's fine. I'm a good multitasker.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so to answer your question, I had this exact problem very recently. I made this, so the client actually had already made this this spline scene, and they were trying to embed it in a Webflow website. And they were like, "Hey, we've got this scene. what we're going to do is we're going to invite you to the file. You edit the file inside our account, and then but they were paying for a spline scene to be done, right? So what I'd recommend doing is, if you were to pay for an account yourself and you were to make different scenes for different people, and then you could send that to your client, and then they could pay to have that hosted in their account. Or the alternative is that, once you're paying for an account, you can have as many different files as you want in your account. So, what I do is I just like make the file in my account and then just link it to their project. Because a lot of the time clients don't want to pay, a monthly fee for something that, might literally be like on the homepage of their website. Which is understandable, but like, I don't think you really need to worry about the cost of hosting it, because frankly, like, if you're making loads of stuff, then it's a bit like, it doesn't make any difference to you having this file in your account, right? But I would say, like, if a client already has a file and they're like, hey, can you just edit this? Then they can actually invite you in to like their account, and then you can edit it from there. So that was one part of your question. The other part of your question is, what is the point in paying for Spline? The point of paying for Spline is that you can, so Spline have like a logo that is inside their files. If you embed them on the website, there's like a Spline logo in here, which obviously you want to get rid of if you're going to publish a client site or like, a personal site like this one. So yeah, I mean, the cost of paying for Spline is $9 a month. Okay, so it's not a lot, and I definitely think it's worth it. I also would say as well, like, just thinking out loud here, is that I recently signed up for a gym, which was quite a lot of money. It was 50 quid a month. And I was like, damn, this is a lot of money. I'm going to get fit. Because when I was paying $10 a month for a shitty gym, I literally never went. And if you pay for Spline, I noticed like my level of like getting good at Spline when I started paying was like, because I was like, I'm paying for this, like I'm going to use this, I'm going to get good at this. And what started to happen is I made websites, like fake websites, like the iPod one. No one asked me to make that website, but I'm getting work from LinkedIn and Twitter because people are quoting, they're like, hey, I want what you did on that iPod website for me. So yeah, I would definitely recommend like exploring Spline and playing around with how it looks on websites if that's what you offer to clients.
And document, and that's, what Jack just said is testament to how important and impactful it can be for you to share what you're learning, the work you're doing, and it might just take one iPod to get you a client.
It, like, literally, that iPod site has earned me way more than
It's paid off for your Spline subscription.
Yeah, like today I got a client from that. They were like, hey, we want you to make something similar in terms of like the actual website structure. So we want you to make the asset, we want you to embed it in our website. And the other thing to say as well, guys, is that you might think, well, do I want to embed the Spline file in my website? I would argue that there's, wrong button, I meant to share. There's loads of stuff that you can do inside Spline. So let's go back to this example. We've got this asset, right? That is, we've got it inside a frame that is, let's make it 1080 by 1080. So let's say a client is like, hey, we want a 3D asset for a website. Well, what you can do is you can actually upsell the client by exporting images for social. So let's say we were like this image, and I'm going to make this a PNG, and I'm going to hide. Actually, let's keep the background color. And so I'm going to click export at the bottom here. And then I'm going to do another one, which is a bit more zoomed in and a bit tilted like that. Ooh, that's sexy. Okay, I'm going to export that. And actually, let's do a quick video of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to go video recording. And I'm going to set the time to 10 seconds. So if you guys see any of my social posts about Spline, this is literally how I do it. Go 10 seconds, and then I click the timer at the bottom here, and I might move this scene around. Oh, it's not working because there's too much going on my laptop. But then I've got a video as well. So suddenly, from this one asset, we've got different things. We've got an image, we've got a couple of different product shots, we've got a video, and what I'm saying is like the asset, to get the most out of Spline, what I recommend you guys do is do not just embed it in a embed it in a website if you're a web designer or a developer. I also recommend like exporting product shots, exporting videos. Like there's so much you can offer clients that they're just like we thought we were hiring you just to make a 3D thing, but actually you've just taken the initiative and been like, hey, have you thought about 3D assets for social? Have you thought about doing like a teaser video for your product? Like you can do that in Spline. So yeah, is it worth paying for? In my opinion, yes, without a doubt, for a number of different reasons, but definitely like you can, in my experience, you can definitely earn money from making 3D stuff in Spline.
Jack, you might be happy to hear. Julie says, for what it's worth, when I try to export a viewer link in my Spline, it just pulls and it doesn't let her use the link that it says it copied. So it might just be a temporary bug. It's not just you.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I'm meant to be exporting something very soon, so I better check that. Cool. Ellie, does that answer your question? I feel like I talk way too much there. Yes?
No,
cool.
thanks a lot. That makes sense. I understand paying 99 USD is not much. On my side, it was definitely the worry of the client not owning their asset. So that part was a bit, it would be the same as us keeping the Webflow website on our Webflow account. Tomorrow I change platform, or I want to do something and I need to talk with the client. And so that was also my worry, but I totally get what you're explaining. So it was quite clear. Thank you.
That's great. And I also think, if you start playing around with the free plan and then you do find a client that would like to have a 3D assets, you can just like incorporate those $9 into their bill,
Yeah, and that as well. Yeah, I mean, like some clients, like $9 to them, it means nothing, right?
That's a sneeze.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like I dropped $9. I'm not picking that up. Like literally.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I know, Anna, you had a question about the sizing that was quite interesting. I can't find it anymore. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the Spline container, the one that contained the Spline scene, it was 100 view per width, 100 view per height. Was that specific to your iPod design, or is that like a setting that you recommend for any Spline scene?
Good question. So, what
and
you
we've
can
got
do.
4 minutes left, just FYI, Jack.
All right, nice. Okay, so when you create a scene in Spline, I recommend putting it to responsive. And like I said earlier, when you make it responsive, what that means is if you were to change the container size, then this whole scene shifts, okay? So what I need to do is change the settings in here. Hold on. So if we go states, so what you can do is you can add states as well. So if you were to have like multiple different objects and you only wanted one of them to be there if the screen got really small, then you could do that using states. But since this is responsive, we've got a scene, responsive, auto zoom turned on. That should now work. Cool. So that's responsive. So then this we want to set in the middle of the scene. And if you imagine that this viewport, we've got 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height, obviously, of this actual like spline scene right now. This is what it's going to look like when you embed it in the center of 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height container inside Webflow, if that makes sense. So that's why I always just do 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height in Webflow, just because I know that if that's what I've set it up in Spline, that's what is going to translate to Webflow. And if it's responsive, then I don't need to worry about it messing up. This is completely messed up, this iPod one, but yeah, I will need to fix that. But that's why I do that. The other thing to say is you're like, you know, you might want a very small spline asset in your website rather than like a big ostentatious scrolling thing. The reason why I do this in websites is because when you use a spline asset, like you want it to actually like, well, I want it to be the focal point of my website, right? So, do you remember I was talking about the product shots earlier? You see how you can do some quite cool things like using the asset in multiple different ways. But yeah, I wanted this asset to be the main focal point. So that's why I just created it 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height, and fixed position. If you don't need it to be 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height. It's just like a spline asset is heavier than other asset types. Like, you know, it's heavier than an image and heavier than a video. Well, depending on how long the video is. So it makes sense to like make it the big thing in the website, make it like the storytelling piece, and obviously 100 viewport width, 100 viewport height. Can't get bigger than that. So that's kind of why I do it as well.
Awesome. Well, my friends, I believe we're at time. I do need to rush, but Jack, it was so great to have you here as our guest today. So thank you so much for taking the time and just giving us, this beautiful overview of this new tool. It's one of those things that you're really fascinated by and intrigued by, but you never actually find the courage to try. And I feel like with your presentation today, it feels less intimidating for sure. So I'm sure
Awesome.
maybe we can host a little fun co-working hour where we just like play around with Spline, before Christmas. We can make a little 3D. Oh, let's make a 3D Christmas tree and put it into the gather.
Hey, that would be epic.
With you.
Can export it? Yeah. We can all make some baubles. That would be a really fun activity. We make a tree, and then everyone has to make a bauble,
All right, deal.
like a little 3D asset, and then they can put it in there. That would be kind of cool.
Deal. We'll chat with the No Code North and we'll try and have another Christmas party.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right,
But
my
yeah,
dear.
make some stuff, guys. It's not hard. Make 3D stuff. It's fun and it's addictive. And tag me if you make something. And if you're struggling to make anything, also just send me a message on Twitter. Like send me a Loom video or whatever, and then I can like try and help you.
Do you prefer Twitter? Because I've been sharing your LinkedIn account. Because I'm not.
Whatever, Twitter or LinkedIn is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, everyone. And I'll see you all next Wednesday.
Awesome. See
Bye.
you guys. Bye.